Ma'am, we are good to go.
MCs, kindly start.
India is the cradle of the human race, the birthplace of human speech, the mother of history, the grandmother of legend, and the great-grandmother of tradition. Our most valuable and most instructive materials in the history of man are treasured up in India only. With this beautiful thought by celebrated author Mark Twain, I, Sushmit Sangupta,
and I, Shamik Chatterjee, wish a warm good morning to Ma'am Sunita Arora, our respected principal, and Colonel Rajneesh Singh, our chief guest. A very welcome also to teachers and participants of the participating schools and everyone watching us today.
As the student representatives of Delhi Public School, Howrah, it is a pleasant privilege to introduce you all to Virasat, a legacy.
We feel privileged to be a part of such a noble idea, a wonderful confluence of cultures and traditions across this beautiful land of diversity.
Virasat suggests possibilities, opportunities, creativity, and colorfulness of youth. Today, all of you get a chance to express yourselves in the best spirit of friendly competitiveness. It is a time to enjoy the splash of immense talent on the huge canvas that is spread out for you.
It's a moment of extreme honor to have Colonel Rajneesh Singh with us today as a chief guest in this ceremony. Colonel Rajneesh Singh was commissioned in infantry in December 1989 and has varied operational staff and instructional experience. He has commanded a Rashtriya Rifles company and a battalion in Jammu and Kashmir. He has been a military observer in Congo for a year. His staff experience includes tenure in Military Operations Directorate and in Military Secretary's branch.
The officer has also been an instructor at the NDA, Karakwasla, and at DSSC Wellington. He has obtained his PhD in Defense and Strategic Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Colonel Rajneesh Singh is presently working as a consultant in the Ministry of Defense. With extreme pride and honor, we welcome you, sir.
Light is a symbol of brightness and prosperity. As sunlight expels the darkness of might, similarly, blessings bring in our life prosperity and happiness. As a mark of our tradition and for seeking the choicest blessings, I invite our respected principal, Ma'am Sunita Arora, the visionary behind this idea, Virasat, along with the headmistresses of our pre-primary department, middle school, and senior school, to light the lamp in the virtual presence of our chief guest, Colonel Rajneesh Singh.
Start.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvighna Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvighna Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Om Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti.
As the light from the lamp emanates its strength, we would now take you all to land Lord Jagannath and present before you Mangalacharan. In the Odissi style, the Mangalacharan invokes the blessings of Lord for an auspicious beginning to the performance, whereupon the dancer offers salutation to Mother Earth.
Dinner,
Well, that was indeed a magnificent dance performance.
I'm not the mind, the intellect, the ego, or the memory. I'm not the ears, the skin, the nose, or the eyes.
I'm not space, not earth, not fire, water, or wind. I'm the form of consciousness and bliss. I'm the eternal Shiva.
This verse from Nirvana Shatakam, composed by Adi Shankara himself over 1,000 years ago, embodies the spiritual pursuit and holds the essence of the notion Virasat. Hence, now DPS Aura presents before you a musical teaser of a journey through Virasat.
बुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानिनाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसाङ्ख्यो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोश न वा पाणिपादं न चोपस्थपायु शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ न मे वैमयैवमाचार्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्मः न बन्धुर्न मृत्युं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं
I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We would now like to call our principal ma'am to address the ceremony.
A very good morning to our respected chief guests, Colonel Rajneesh Singh, teachers from participating schools, and all the young participants. I welcome you all to the opening ceremony of Virasat, a legacy. We are all aware of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative of the government of India to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of Indian independence. This Mahotsav is an embodiment of all that is progressive about India's socio-cultural, political, and economic identity. I, as an educator and a mentor, believe that educational institutions hold an equal responsibility in meeting the vision of this Mahotsav. Preparing a future which is not only proud of its history, rich culture, and traditions, but also carrying this legacy forward. Hence, the idea of Virasat was born. I envision an India where every child nurtures its past and imbibes the values of humility, equality, and brotherhood, values that define our nation. I'm certain that these 2 days will give the children a platform to explore their own culture and tradition, learn from each other, and appreciate whatever we have. I thank principals of all the participating schools for letting their students be a part of this fest. My best wishes to all the participants. My suggestion to you all is to enjoy the 2 days and be proud of your rich legacy. And now I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Colonel Rajneesh Singh for consenting to be a part of this celebration. We are also very grateful to Colonel Rajneesh Singh for having appreciated our students' work in the Veer Gatha project on behalf of the Ministry of Defense, Government of India. Students were indeed delighted to see their work feature in the official Twitter page of Ministry of Defense, Government of India. We are honored to have you, Mr. Singh. I certainly believe that you will be an inspiration to our young participants here. I would request you now to address the young minds and share words of wisdom with them. Welcome, sir.
Principal, Mrs. Sunita Arora, faculty of the school, and my dear students, good morning. At the outset, ma'am, I would like to thank you for those kind words. I would also like to convey my appreciation for the wonderful performance that we have just witnessed. It gives me great pleasure to be part of this initiative, and I consider it my honor and privilege to be with you all this morning. India's cultural heritage is not only one of the most ancient, but also one of the most extensive and varied. Our culture is our way of life. It is embodiment of what we think and what we do. I'm sure all of you have heard the phrase unity in diversity. India is a vast country and has many of you and has people who speak different languages, have different religion, and follow different customs. But there is an underlying thread which binds us all together, and that cementing force is our culture. I'm happy to note that DPS Havda has selected this important and relevant topic for today's festival. It's also heartening to see that so many schools have come forward to participate in this particular event. Today, as I speak to you, I would like to explain a practice that's followed in the Indian Armed Forces, which is, to my mind, an embodiment of our culture, which is varied, diverse, and also teaches us values of compassion and tolerance. I have also a few words to say to your teachers. In Indian Armed Forces, officers and men come from all parts of the country. They bring with them India's varied culture, tradition, and practices. All these aspects of culture are followed with equal vigor in the units and the battalions. The officers go to great lengths to participate in the cultural and religious activities and rituals of their troops. And one such activity in practice is of having a Sarv Dharm Sthal in the units and battalions. A Sarv Dharm Sthal is a place of worship of different faith and religion under the same roof. All activities of the Sarv Dharm Sthal are practiced with equal enthusiasm by the troops and officers in the unit, signifying India's diversified culture and a spirit of accommodation, tolerance, and compassion. This brings me to the point why I consider that the subject chosen by the school is the step in the right direction to teach our students about our culture. It will help our students appreciate our culture. And as human beings, when we understand something, we value that thing. And when we value that thing, we protect that thing. Today's fest will go a long way to help the students to appreciate, value, and protect our culture. I also understand that it must be challenging times for some of the students in the school. They may face bullying because they may struggle to find common grounds with those around them. But such festivals bring students together and obviate many of these such issues. We have also seen and heard that instances of cultural heritage are destroyed by terrorist actions and during the times of wars and conflict. Today's festival will raise awareness in our students as to how precious our culture is and the need to preserve this culture for our future generation. With those words, I would like to thank DPS Havda for organizing this fest. I'm sure by the end of this festival tomorrow, our students would be greatly enriched and they will feel proud to be an Indian. My appreciation to the budding artists who have volunteered to participate in various events. We are going to enjoy whatever you present to us. I would also like to thank your parents, who I'm sure have put in time, effort, and energy to help you with your chosen event. Finally, thank you all for giving me this patient hearing. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your encouragement and motivating words. Now we would invite Ma'am Meeta Chakraborty, Headmistress Middle School, to take over the ceremony.
Virasat, a legacy, is our humble endeavor to ignite young minds, connect and delve deep into our rich heritage. 14 schools today have joined us in this two-day fest to celebrate our heritage and culture. We are indeed privileged to have amongst us Colonel Rajneesh Singh to grace today's opening ceremony as the chief guest. I must inform you, sir, that representatives from participating schools are thrilled for having got this opportunity to interact with you today. So without any further ado, I would like to rather initiate the session by requesting Muskan Yasmin Bhagat, class 8 of APJ School, Park Street, to ask a question, please.
Good morning to all respected teachers and sir. I'm Muskan Yaman. So I hope all of you are safe at your homes. The question I wanted to ask you, sir, is that, is there any difference in your field of work before and after the pandemic crisis? And like, what are the challenges that soldiers are facing at the moment?
Muskan, as you would understand, the pandemic has affected our country for the last almost 2 years. We have seen the peak last year, but since then, things have improved a lot for all of us. As far as the military is concerned, the armed forces are concerned, there were two big challenges in front of our military leadership. One was what we call as force preservation, and second, maintenance of operational efficiency. I'll try and explain to you. Force preservation means that the militaries are only effective to undertake their role if the soldiers are healthy, fit, and they are able to fight as per the training given to them. And the militaries are only efficient if the soldiers are fit. This viral infection, COVID, had affected soldiers as much as it had affected other citizens of the country. And therefore, the military leadership took very conscious decision to strictly enforce the protocols that our medical authorities had told us to follow. And that includes establishment of quarantine centers, strict checks. The leaves of the troops were restricted. They were not permitted to go home because their family members were possibly affected, and we can't have soldiers falling sick. And then obviously they can't do their duties. You would have also heard in the news that the government had organized special transport facilities. The troops were flown in special aircraft. We have challenges facing our northern borders. You I'm sure would be aware that in Ladakh we have almost warlike situation, and that's where the government organized special transport to take the troops to Ladakh. Special trains were run, wherein only soldiers whose checks were done, medical checks were done, were permitted to travel. Trainings were organized, but under medical supervision, and that's how we maintained our operational efficiency. These were some of the challenges that we faced, but of course, the government was very kind and then responsive. The soldiers were designated as frontline workers, and therefore we got the vaccines at the earliest possible opportunity. The family members were also given vaccines so that the virus is not transmitted to the soldiers. And of course, the strict control and routine that I had mentioned. I think that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind.
Okay, with that, I will request now Meghna Deshmukh, class 12 of DPS Panvel, to ask a question, please.
A cheerful good morning to all the dignitaries and one and all present here. I'm Meghna Deshmukh from DPS Panvel. I'm an ND aspirant and I appreciate that the government has allowed women to participate in defense. But I would like to know that what are the factors that kept the Ministry of Defense from including women past so many decades?
Meghna, perhaps your question would need reframing. And I would say the correct question would be, what took the government so long to allow entry in India? As you would know, women have been serving in the armed forces for a very long time. They have been in military nursing service for over hundreds of years. There have been doctors in the armed forces for a very long time. In fact, the women were commissioned as officers in the armed forces in 1992, perhaps long before you were even born. In armed forces, what we have is services and combat units. Women have been serving in services, that is to support our war effort in education field, as lawyers and judges, as supply and logistic officers since 1992. However, gradually, as our Raksha Mantri had pointed out in one of his addresses, that India took an evolutionary step to induct women into the armed forces. And as you are aware, the entries have been permitted in India. And I'm actually very delighted to know that you are an NDA aspirant. And I wish you all the best. And I would be greatly pleased to see you joining India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm sure there's a lot of takeaway for you as you're an NDA aspirant already. With that, I would request R3 Chatterjee, class 7, Ruby Park Public School, to ask her question next.
Good morning, respected sir and dear teachers. This is R3 Chatterjee from Ruby Park Public School. Sir, I wanted to know, how can the youth foster discipline in their lives?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. In fact, I would say there is a role for everyone, and that includes your family, your school, and of course, self-discipline. When it comes to a young child, it's the family which inculcates the various aspects of leading a disciplined life. And when a child joins a school, grows up to become a young person, the teachers, the seniors in the school captains, the other appointments out there, they in their own way try and inculcate the aspect of discipline. And of course, there's no denying self-discipline is the best form of discipline. Discipline can never be enforced, or else there would be rebellion. A child would rebel. A child and a youth has to be motivated. People have to appeal to reason, explain the benefits of discipline, and that is how I feel discipline can be inculcated in a youth.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
So, I mean, definitely this is a lesson for all young students. Discipline can be imbibed. It cannot be simply forced into any one of us, may it be a youngster or an elderly person. Next question from Aryan, class 8, Credo World School. Over to you, Aryan.
A very good morning to one and all. Myself, Aryan, of class 8 from Credo World School, Dahanu. I would like to ask, sir, during the pandemic, what is your role as a consultant to the Defense Ministry?
In fact, I have joined only recently the Ministry of Defense as a consultant. And so as far as the pandemic was concerned, the main role was being performed by the medical authorities who were responsible for providing medical advice. And the military leadership, as I said, was also responsible for enforcing the two aspects. One was the force preservation. How do you protect the troops from getting infected? And during pandemic, how do you ensure that your military remains as efficient to undertake the task that it is supposed to do? That was the challenge in front of the military leadership. I, for one, as I said, I have joined ministry only recently, and my role, amongst others, is also to establish connect with the schools. And it was recently, perhaps your school also participated. We had organized Project Virgatha, wherein the students express themselves in various forms by writing poems, by writing proses, making a presentation in honor of the award winners, the gallantry award winners. And that was one of the projects that I was involved in. And it was a pleasure to connect with all of you, the various schools and students in the country.
Thank you, sir.
The next question by Arpita Roy, class 10, DPS Megacity. Over to you.
Very good morning, sir. It is an absolute honor to be able to interact with you. So my question to you is that what would be that lesson which you learned while overcoming a challenging situation as a colonel, and what is that lesson which you would like the youth to learn and be inspired of?
Right. In fact, the first thing that I would like to tell you is there's no insurmountable challenge. Whatever be the form of challenge, whatever be the situation, human capacity of perseverance, tenacity, doggedness can overcome any challenge that you are faced with. You have to only convince yourself there is nothing that you cannot do or overcome to overcome a challenging situation. My only advice to you is you have the strength to overcome any challenging situation that you may be faced in your life. You don't need anybody's support.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
The next question is coming up from Kanav Dhandania, class 10, Birla High School, Kolkata.
A very good morning, sir. As we know, mental strength is as important as physical strength, especially when it comes to the defense. So what is the process of building that mental strength, especially during the time of a crisis or war?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you come again? There was some interruption there.
Right, sir. So as we know, mental strength is as important as physical strength, especially when it comes to the defense. So how do our soldiers and other personnel build that mental strength, especially during time of a crisis?
Okay, great. In fact, it's the training that builds up mental strength of our troops and soldiers. Right from the time when they join, either as soldiers in the regimental centers, or you join as an officer cadet in National Defense Academy, you undergo a process which has been scientifically programmed, and there are instructors who are trained to train cadets and the soldiers. There is a program which is made after great amount of deliberation, and thereafter the cadets and the recruits are put through the paces to undergo that training. Training is one single aspect which I feel builds your mental stamina. And of course, once you pass out from NDA and other academies, There is a process of continuous training in the army, and you are put through education system. In fact, it would be a misnomer to say that the soldiers don't read. I would say the reading continues till the last day you are in uniform. In fact, it is one of those professions where you are regularly put through training. You are put through courses, you are made aware of what's happening around in the world. And it's when you are aware of what's happening around in the world, you are able to undergo and all kinds of stresses that you may be faced with. So training is one thing which helps build mental stamina.
Thank you, sir.
Another important takeaway, keep reading. Reading is an ultimate truth. Knowledge should not stop. Learning should not stop. Okay, the next question by Aditya, class 8, Credo World School again.
Good morning to sir and everyone present. I am Aditya Dhawan from Credo World School, Dahanu. Sir, my question for you is, if a biological world war breaks out, how well are we prepared to protect our country and our people?
We have seen almost a kind of biological warfare for last 2 years. COVID was willy-nilly a kind of situation we would be faced with in case there is a biological attack, a kind of world war that you, as you said, would happen. In a conventional war that we all understand, we know who the enemy is, who that human being is, and we also know what he wants. He may want a particular piece of territory. We also know how is he going to attack us. He could come through air in his aircraft, or he could attack on land. But when it comes to biological weapon, a virus, which is the weapon of war, it has no declared aim other than to multiply and affect another human being. You cannot negotiate, talk to that enemy. You cannot talk to a virus. The virus does not attack you directly. It infects a human body, and from there, it is transmitted to other human beings. So there's only one way to control the spread of the virus, and that is social distancing. And human beings are not programmed to be away from each other. However, we must know and understand the nature of warfare and act accordingly. There are some differences between normal war and biowar. Besides, in biological warfare, the government has to take various other steps. Our medical and healthcare system has to improve. The education of our citizens as far as this medical emergency is concerned has to be updated, and people have to follow orders, including getting vaccinated when the government says so. So long as you follow these orders, so long as the government is ready for these kind of calamities, we, I think, would be well prepared to take on any challenge, including biological warfare. I think it answers your question. I hope it answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The next question will be asked by Kaustubh, class 10, Sainia International School, Howrah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kaustubh of Singh International School, Howrah. And my question to the chief guest is, how did you imagine military life before you joined? Was there any change in your perception after you joined the military?
Okay. Well, I also came from a public school like yours. And in our school, there was emphasis on all aspects of development. We played a lot of games. We went out on the fields. We were introduced to athletic activities. And of course, we studied. Like I said, in the military, both these aspects are of extreme importance. You have to be physically fit. you have to be able to take on the rigors of a military life, and yet you have to be mentally alert and mentally active to understand the changing nature of warfare, the new technology that is being introduced, and the new weapon systems that come in. So obviously you have to study and you have to be physically fit. And like I said, if in my school, both these aspects were given equal importance. And therefore, when I joined NDA, and that was way back in 1986, I wasn't very much surprised. Of course, the physical aspects were definitely more challenging. The physical part was more demanding, but one was prepared for that. And I assume some of you out here who are NDA aspirants would cater and take care of both these issues. Keep yourself fit, go out and play. And at the same time, I would expect you to study hard. Does it answer your question, Costa?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Costa. Our next student who would be asking the question would be Rajneesh Haldar, class 7, Delhi Public School, Howrah. Over to you, Rajneesh.
Thank you, Meeta ma'am. A very good morning to sir and everyone present here. I got to learn so much from your words today, sir, which you said till now. So my question for you is, we have often seen in movies that there is a difference of opinion or viewpoints between the chief of the armed forces and the political head of the country. Is it so or otherwise?
I would say both the political head of the country as also the chief of the army staff are very experienced and mature people. They only rise up because they have that competence, they have that capability, and they have the maturity to tenant that particular appointment. The political head of the country, without any doubt, for all military chiefs of army staff, is the political head of the country. And his orders have to be obeyed. There is just no doubt. Of course, how that order has to be translated into a military task, that's the job of a military specialist. And that is the chief of the army staff. He is the military specialist. He's the advisor to the government and to the political head. And he advises about the manner in which the task can be performed militarily. Now, when you ask me about the differences of opinion, I won't put it that way. It is the chief advises on his role and the task. And I give you a very famous example of Field Marshal Manekshaw. Have you heard of him? Yeah. Okay. So you would have also heard that in 1971, when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi asked then General Manekshaw to attack Pakistan and carry out certain tasks, sometime in April, General Manekshaw advised the Prime Minister and said that perhaps it's not the right time. That was not difference of opinion. That was giving a military advice as a specialist. And it was maturity on part of both the Prime Minister as also General Manekshaw. Maturity on part of Prime Minister to accept the advice of his Chief of Army Staff and General Manekshaw to give the best possible advice what was required. Therefore, in the end, we did attack Pakistan, and that was sometime in December, which was the best time to do. And that was not difference of opinion. And that is how the governments function.
Thank you so much, sir.
Our next question is by Bhakti Tripathi, class 10 of BDM International School, Kolkata. Bhakti, over to you.
A very good morning to everyone present here. So my question is, in spite of having huge vacancies in the armed forces in the country, why do you think that the youth is not very much inclined to join the force? What do you think should be done about it?
Oh, that's not very heartening for me to know that youth is not very inclined. I would assume it otherwise. But that since you say, tell me so, I will accept your opinion. And I would say, yes, there are some challenges in the sense when the development takes place, there are opportunities which are created all around us, and youth does get attracted to some of the new things that comes up in front of them, and therefore they try and join, they try and work their way out towards joining that particular job or profession. But still, the profession of arm still amongst the most noble, it is amongst the most respected, and I would say profession in the country that you can get. The citizens shower us with adulation, with their love, with their respect, and that I feel is the reason good enough for most of the youth to join the armed forces. And of course, there are policies that have to be made by the government, which has to take care of some of the issues, that is in terms of compensation for many of the things that are being done. And the government definitely is always aware of the requirements, and they do their best to fulfill those requirements. And I'm sure things will improve. And most of you, including yourself, would like to join the armed forces.
Yes,
Does it answer your question, Bhakti?
Yes, sir.
So many valuable takeaways. Yes, today's youth they are actually, there is so much of diversification in this career options. So I guess that's how other lucrative offers, or maybe I do not know how they judge these situations when they are up there to choose a career. There are so many other determining factors. But see, this is also something where we should be proud of, and you must take it up as your choice. The last question for the session, though the question hour session can never end, there's so much, and there were a list of exhaustive questions from all the students, but we had to abide by the time limit. So the last question for the day is by Kinkini Das of class 7 from Delhi Public School, Ruby Park. Kinkini.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kinkini Das from Delhi Public School, Ruby Park. And so my question to you is, what is so special about the Rafale aircraft?
Okay. The Rafale aircraft, as some say, and you would have heard in the news, is a game changer. And let me explain it that to you. When you have, let's say, two people fighting each other, two soldiers fighting each other with swords, when they have similar kind of swords, they are equal. But let's say one of the soldier has a broader sword, and it's made of a special steel. So obviously you have introduced an element of superiority in that soldier. But now let's assume that one of the soldier has a gun and other one has a sword. Now that's what is called a game changer. A soldier with a gun can obviously shoot the other one from a distance. His aim would be accurate, and he'll be able to do the task that he's supposed to do. Now let's see what air warfare is. When it comes to air warfare, there are two kinds of tasks that the plane is supposed to do. One is called the offensive task. And the offensive task is the plane goes into the enemy territory or somewhere close by. And from there, it carries its armaments, and that includes bombs, missiles, rockets, and it attacks an enemy target. That's called the offensive action. You also have aircrafts which perform defensive action. And the defensive action is when the enemy aircraft comes and hits you or tries to come and hit you, your own aircraft tries to hit back. And that's called a defensive task by an air defense aircraft. But modern aircrafts, unlike in the past, which could do only one of the tasks, that is either an offensive task or a defensive task, but the modern aircraft can perform multivarious roles. And they are called, that is why they are called multi-role aircrafts. These modern aircrafts have aerodynamic bodies. They are very maneuverable. They are fast. They're agile. They can carry a lot of weight. A Rafale can carry almost 9 tons of weight. That is 9,000 kgs. 9,000 kgs of armament it can carry, and it can target the enemy with that kind of weight. There are radars, if you would have heard of it. The radars can pick up enemy targets. And because of all these facilities which are available in the aircraft, a Rafale is called a game changer. And therein lies the importance of this particular aircraft.
Thank you.
Does it help you, Kinkini?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai.
That was indeed a very inspiring, engaging, and of course, an insightful session. I'm sure students will have. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm Tripti Singh from BDM International School, and I think my name has been missed.
Is it? Is it? Okay. Okay, Tripti, over to you. Please shoot your question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A very good morning to sir and to all the teachers present here. I'm Tripti Singh from BDM International School. And my question is that, with the biological warfare taking a toll on humankind, who is responsible to handle this specific crisis? How is the military combating the issue of the modern war, where the arms and ammunitions have taken a backseat and the intelligence sector the front?
I think I have partially answered your question in 2 questions regarding biological warfare, which were asked by the students earlier. The first part of your question is who is responsible for controlling this pandemic, so to say. And the biological warfare, once it is unleashed, it actually manifests itself as a pandemic. And as I said, there are responsibilities right from the top. The government has certain role in this to combat biological weapons. The military has a role. And I would say the citizens have the most important role. The government, as I said, is responsible to develop healthcare system, to ensure that the medical equipment is available at all the time in all parts of the country. The military has to preserve itself and still be able to fight despite the challenges of being infected or chances of getting infected by the virus. But the pandemic or the biological weapon can only be controlled if the citizen and children like you are aware of the potential of this particular weapon system. Virus could be a weapon system of the enemy. And in case our citizens are aware, they take medical advice seriously and follow what our doctors say, we'll be able to defeat this particular challenge. How is that, Tripti?
Thank you so much.
That, you would follow medical advice and you would ensure that people around you follow medical advice as well.
Yes, sir, for sure.
Thank you. See, there are a lot of other students also who had sent in a lot of other questions, but we had to shortlist a few to fit in our schedule. I'm sure other participants will understand. So with that, we come to the end of this question hour. And that was indeed a very inspiring, engaging, and insightful session, Colonel Rajneesh. And I'm sure students will have a lot of valuable takeaways from this session. Over to you, Sushmit, to render the Dhanyoshmi and the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. It was indeed a pleasure to hear you and learn from you. I once again wish all participants success. Let us come together and make these 2 days a wonderful conference that we would cherish forever. Life is made beautiful by shared moments like what is happening here right now.
Well, I can see the eager faces all around looking ahead in anticipation. Our best wishes to every participant. Let the celebration begin. Thank you all.